And the square root method. You're not gonna have a question on the test where it says you have to do the square root method, because the square root method is built into completing the square method, which is where we're headed. However, I pointed this out last week. There's gonna be one of those, solve it any way you want, where it's perfectly set up for the square root method. On the review sheets right here, number 16. And I always mention, hey, look how nice this is. It's really set up for the square root method. You just have to isolate on the direction or step by step. Isolate the constant. That's square root. Isolate the constant, square root of both sides, don't be plus and minus, solve and simplify as far as you can go. When you have a perfect square, and here's when you have a perfect square and a number. On the review sheet right there, 16, 3x minus 5 squared, and the number, perfect square and the number, square root number. You don't have a mandatory one like that because right now we're going to complete the square. And one of the steps in completing the square, right here, take the square root of both sides. Don't forget the plus and minus. So completing the square ends with the square root method. Okay. We want to make a nice perfect square so you can just take the square root of both sides. Step by step. So I posted these last week. Whether you printed them out and brought them with you so you have something to refer to all the time, I don't know. We're going to do number 33. Directions say solve the equation by completing the square. So on your test, the directions will say you have to use completing the square. Step one. This method is used to solve any quadratic equation that looks like this. A perfect square, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We don't have a perfect square equal to a number. We have this x to the first. Okay. This is what we have to use if it doesn't factor. Try factoring. That means try it. What happens if it doesn't factor? Well, there's got to be another method. Technically, we have two other methods. This method, and then because of this method, we have a quadratic formula. So we need to know this one. Well, if we have the quadratic formula, why do we need to know this one? If you are going further, we use completing the square all the time because we need to make perfect squares in problems to be able to convert it into something else. It's about writing something that can't be done into something that can be done. Working with perfect squares by using this method makes it happen. So it's changing it from one language into another. Step one, we isolate the constant. Okay. Leave a little open spot where that constant was, because that's where we're going to put something that makes a perfect square. Think about the name of this, completing the square. We're going to make a perfect square. We want a nice perfect square and a number so we can take the square root of both sides. So we're going to isolate the constant. The constant is that negative 32. And by isolating, that means we're going to take it to the right. So we have to add 32 to both sides. X squared plus 4x, leave a little empty spot, equals over here 32. And we're going to put something here that completes the square. The next step, check A. A is the coefficient of your square term. A is the number in front of the square. Make sure that A is equal to 1. It's not going to work unless we have 1 times x squared. And right here, it's 1 times x squared. We have 1 times x squared, which is x squared. It has to be a 1. If A is not equal to 1, then you divide all the terms by whatever A is. So if you had 5x squared plus 4x, and over here you have equals negative 25. That's not 1x squared. You have to divide everybody by 5. So now you have 1x squared plus 4/5 x equals negative 5. You have to make it 1x squared before you can move on. You might have fractions, but that's life here. If you're going to use completing the square. Will I give you one fraction on the test? No. Not the test question bonus. Yeah. Test question, no. That would defeat the purpose of, can you show me that you can complete the square? Okay. It's a 1. Check A. That's it. It's a 1. This is like following a recipe. Like you're making a cake. Take 1/2 of B, B over 2. You're going to square that answer. Then you're going to add that to both sides of the equation. We have just completed a perfect square trinomial that is ready for factoring. It's like making a cake. You take half of B. B is the coefficient of x to the first. B is the number in front of the x. Here's the B. B is a 4. I always do this over. Actually, write it out. I'll show you why I write it out. I take, literally, I say this in my head, out loud in my head. I take 1/2 of 4. What's half of 4? I get 2. Then I square it. Then I square it. Then I square it. What's 2 squared? I get 4. That's what I add to both sides. I'll have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 36. That's why I left that empty spot, that little empty space in the first step, is because I'm going to put something in there. I'm going to add half of b squared. We just made a nice perfect square on the left-hand side. That left-hand side will always factor either into a plus b perfect square or a minus b perfect square. It just depends what signs I have. That's the best. Take 1/2 of that 4, which is 2, and then I square it and I get 4. Now, I write it out because you're going to see it in a second. This left-hand side is going to be a nice, perfect square. Oops. All right. Perfect square. It's going to be, what times what is x? What times what is x? X times x. Since these are both positive, this has to be positive. What times what is 4? 2. Is x plus 2 perfect square? That makes it. Always. A squared plus 2ab plus b squared is what this is. The perfect square. Now here's why I write it out. You see this 2 right here? My 1/2 of b, the 1/2 of b that we took right here, this right before the square happens is going to be right there every single time. That's why I write it out. 1/2 of b, that's what's going to be that last thing in parentheses. Now here's, if you do it by hand, greatest common factor we should not have. We set up the parentheses. First times first is x squared, so it has to be x times x. Since those signs are both positive, these two signs have to both be positive. Last times last is 4. So it's either 1 times 4 or 2 times 2. The middle is 4. So which of these have the best chance of adding up to a 4? 1 and 4, 2 and 2. 2 and 2 will add up to a 4. So look at what we have. X plus 2 times x plus 2. X plus 2 times itself is x plus 2 squared. It's a perfect square. The whole point where we say the name of this method, completing the square. We made a perfect square when we added 4 to both sides. When we took half of b, then we squared it. This that we added to both sides completed a perfect square on the left. Because now it's the square root method. Back to the perfect square. It's always going to be this or this. Remember, I posted this, so you have this. Take the square root of both sides, simplify completely, and don't forget the plus minus. Take the square root of both sides, square root here, square root there. Square root of x plus 2 squared is x plus 2 equals plus or minus, what's square root of 6? 6. It's perfect square. Solve for the variable. Simplify your answer completely if possible. Show your work, all of it, neatly. So if I'm solving for x and it's x plus 2, what do I do? You subtract 2 from both sides. Now take a look. This is a part that messes people up. It's -2, and then you have a plus or minus 6 that's afterwards. This word combined with this word, you have to go until you can't go any further. Simplify completely. If you can continue working a little bit more on it, you have to. Can you combine a 2 and a 6? Can you actually add a 2 with a 6? Then you need to keep going. There's 2 problems here. You have x equal
x equals -2 plus or minus a 6. So separate it. It's -2 minus a 6. If x equals -2 plus a 6.
There's two things. So separate that plus or minus. Then you have
-2 minus 6, that's -8. -2 plus 6 is +4. So my two answers would be -8 and a +4.
Please remember, today's quiz is not solving. It's just simplifying. You do not put plus or minus when you do your square roots today. Only when we solve equations. Has to be an equation. In the directions we say solve for x. Now, if you check your answer,
Let's just play it 4. 4 squared is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. Minus 32 is supposed to equal 0. 16 plus 16 is 32. Minus 32, sure enough, it equals 0. -8. -8 squared plus 4 times -8 minus 32. So that's positive 64 minus 32 minus 32. Yep, that makes a 0.
you can check your answers before you walk out. Do another step 5, 6, 4. So while you're practicing for your homework, copying answers is not going to help. Because you have to show that you can actually carry the steps out when you're taking your test. This is next Wednesday. You get the review sheet today. Right, just next Monday. Monday. Review sheet today, we review on Wednesday. That's on Monday, motion. 4. 4x squared minus 16x minus. Step 1, isolate the constant. What's a constant in that equation? Remember, the constant is the one that does not have a variable. So it's a -5. But the constant is our -5. So we isolate it, we add 5 to both sides. Leave an empty spot. 4x squared minus 16x, leave an empty spot, equals +5. Step 2, check A. Make sure it's 1. So what's the A right now? It's a 4. So it's not a 1. You divide all the terms by A. Everybody gets divided by an equal. Now,
Dividing by a, make sure you also simplify before you move on. This is now x squared. We want 1x squared. There it is. But if this simplifies, simplify. Don't leave it 16 over 4. What's 16 over 4? 4 goes minus 4x. Still an empty spot equals 5 over 4. Do not change it to a mixed number. Do not write 1 1/4. Do not change it to 1.25. No decimals. Leave it as an improper fraction. Please trust me on this. Leave it as an improper fraction. So now it's step 1, step 2, all done. Here comes the cake. Take half of b. Well, what's b? Good. -4. That matters. So I'm going to take 1/2 of parentheses -4. What's half of -4? -2 parentheses. -2 parentheses. Now I'm going to square it. What's -2 squared? +4. And I know it's unfortunate that the question that they give as my example is the same 4 that we got before. I wish it was something else, but I wanted to give you one where we had to divide by the a. So we add this 4 to both sides. X squared minus 4x plus 4 equals. You need to be able to add those two fractions together. Maybe your calculator does fraction, or just maybe you're going to have to go.
Okay, add those fractions together, baby.
5 over 4, hopefully that's not on during the test or a quiz. And again, if that's your calculator, hey. But
It does, of course, that's it, is that.
yeah, but as long as it's not, it can't be, if it's calculated, it's fine. So +4. This is 4 over 1. So what would the common denominator? 4. So I have to multiply this by 4 over 4. So this is 5 over 4 plus 16 over 4. So 5 plus 16, this is 21 over 4. We just made a perfect square on the left side. It's a perfect square. So it's going to look like a plus b perfect square or a minus b perfect square. So it's going to be nice, parentheses, perfect square. Since it's minus, it's going to be x times x or x squared. It's going to be minus inside because that's minus. And then that's 4, so a perfect square, that means this has got to be a 2 to make a 4. But look at why I write this out. Half of b. B is -4. I took the half, I got a -2. -2 is exactly what's going to be right there. My half of b is going to be part inside the factor.
Instead of.
So when I write this out, half of exactly b, wrote that down, and then I go, what is half of b? -2. And then I square it, that's my 4, that's what I had here. This inside is that. Where it really comes in handy is if this is a fraction. And you have a fraction in here before you square it. Like on the bonus. Take the square root of both sides. Simplify, don't just put them up. X minus 2 equals plus or minus. All right. Rules of square roots and radicals. You cannot have a fraction inside the radical. So this is the square root of 21 over the square root of 4. You can't have a radical in the denominator. But what's the square root of 4? So this is just the square root of 21 over a 2. Plus or minus square root 21 over 2. And now to solve for x, how do I undo x minus? Add 2 to both sides. Okay. I'm going to add 2. Don't mess this up. I add 2. The plus and minus should always be the last thing. And that's how I know students aren't getting it themselves, because AI, calculators, when they do the work, they put it first. They put the plus and minus first, and then they put the other thing last. So I know, I've been around. I've seen things. X equals. Can you combine a 2 with a square root of 21? Are they like terms? No. So it's equal to just 2 plus or minus square root 21 over a 2. Stop there, that's fine. You can't combine them together, so you don't need to go any further. At the bottom of the box, x equals 2 plus or minus square root of 21 all over a 2. But I'm going over that too much of my trading account finishing. There's no way I'm gonna get, without just blowing a brisket in your brain. We're gonna make this 11-6 a Wednesday. 11, yeah, so 11-4, or yeah, 11-4. So this will be 11-4. We'll still be wrapping things up, but we'll probably get through 2.5 and finish up quadratic formula, QF, and 2.5 on 28. Test is going to be on Wednesday the 6th.
Today's 28th.
Thank you. 30th. Quadratic formula. The 2.5 there, and this is 11-4. Yeah. So that gives me a chance to do this. And why it's important. Going back to 33.
And going back to our, what do you always want to check for first? If this were on this were your test, and you're looking at the directions, and you've already done the mandatory factoring, you've already done the mandatory completing square, mandatory quadratic formula. So now you're here in the land of any way you want. And you hopefully remember something that I said, try back. If it doesn't specify method, try back. So hopefully, try back.
So I'm looking at this one, and I'm gonna give factoring a try. Remember how long completing square took? So there's no common factors on the set of parentheses. First times first is x squared, so what are the first two terms have to be? Have to be x times x. That's the only way you're gonna make an x. The last times last is a negative. The signs are the next thing you look at. If I'm gonna make a negative, these two signs have to be positive, positive, negative, negative, or opposites. One positive, one negative, or negative, positive. Opposites or the same. Opposite. The only way to make a negative is if we multiply a positive times a negative. So I'm just gonna put a positive negative. So here's what I know. It has to be x times x. It has to be a plus and a minus. Everything I have right now is the only way this puzzle is gonna work. The last piece is a 32. Maybe it's 1 times 32. Maybe it's 2 times 16. Maybe 3 doesn't work. Maybe it's 4 times 8. 5 doesn't work, 6 doesn't work, 7 doesn't work. The next one would be 8 times 4, I already have. Seriously, they're not always this blatant. I probably won't choose 1 and 32, but I always start with 1. I list out all the factors for the last term, starting with 1, so I don't miss any. I go to 1, and then I go to, if it's odd, I go to 2 anyway, and 2's not going. And I just list every single one, just in case. Maybe I need to know what all of them are. It's like having all the pieces of the puzzle face up, so I know what I have to work with. If you don't have the pieces, you don't know what's missing. You don't know what you have. Maybe none of these are going to work. Or maybe the only pieces you have that you think of don't work, but you forgot. If I was going to choose these pieces, that they all make 32, but which one do you think have the best chance of making 4 in the middle? Which of those have the best chance of combining together with addition or subtraction to make a 4? 2 and 16 can add or subtract and make a 4. Think. 2 plus 16, 2 minus 16, 16 plus 2, 16 minus 2 will add or subtract and make 4. I think 4 and 8. 4 and 8 have the best chance of combining and making 4. 4 plus 8, 4 minus 8, so on. So let's just, without thinking, just first of all, the best chance, yeah, 4 and 8. But then don't think, just put them in there. So we try the 4 then the 8. And check. Your goal was to make positive 4x. So check. Outside times outside. X times negative 8, negative 8x. Inside, positive 4x. We did not make positive 4, we made negative 4x. We don't want negative, positive, sorry, we don't want negative, we want positive. You have the right quantity, you have the 4x, we have the wrong sign. Don't switch the numbers, just change the signs. This one should have been your negative, and this one should be your positive. Okay. Now we have positive x times positive 8, positive 8x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. 8 minus 4x, positive 4x. But we got our plus and minus.
This is where you get better at this. Actually think before you make your move.
I want 4, the best chance is 4 and 8. I want positive 4, so who should be the positive? 8. Because if I have a positive 8 and a negative 4, that'll give me a positive 4.
Think about how the pieces have the best chance of fitting together. I have an 8 and a 4, and that would add and subtract to make a 4. I want a positive 4, so which one should be, which one should be positive? The 8 should be positive and the 4 should be negative. That will add up to a positive 4x. It's the pieces of the puzzle have to fit together.
A positive 8 and a negative 4. Now that you have those, you let each factor equal 0. Add 4. This x is equal to 4, subtract 8. These are the answers that we got with completing the square.
I don't know how many times I've already talked about trifactoring. And you know how many times I say it every semester and people just don't even bother? Makes me sad. Make me happy. Okay? I seriously set these problems up so factoring will get you there. Some of them, that's your only method, show them the way. Now,
Just a little preview. We did this one with completing the square, and we had to divide everybody by 4.
quadratic formula. The quadratic formula exists because of completing the square. If we applied completing the square to a quadratic equation,
If we take this through the steps of
completing the square,
we end up with this x is equal to, now listen to how I say this. This x is equal to the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared. So that coefficient, b squared, minus 4 times that coefficient times a times c, all over 2 times whatever that a is.
so if you can identify A, B, and C, you just plug it in. You have to identify A, B, and C. Now, this isn't the formal lecture for it, so I'm just showing you a demonstration. So instead of completing the square,
And remember, we got 2 plus or minus square root 21 over 2. This equals 0. It has to start off equal to 0.
the next step,
I would make a list. I put this in the notes. I would make a list. What is A? A is 4. B is negative 16. The signs matter. B is negative 16. And C is negative 5.
that's step 2. Step 3, you don't get to use notes. So you have to know the quadratic formula by heart. On Wednesday, I'll show you a little YouTube video of some guy that raps to it. But there's also, like, I think, Pop Goes the Weasel rendition of the quadratic formula song. I won't sing. I don't sing at all. I just know it because I have a monotone. You don't want this. But there's all sorts of videos on there. Google quadratic formula song. You'll get 100 videos with people singing the quadratic formula.
I write it out. Every time I use a formula, I always write it out. X is equal to the opposite of B. I don't say negative B, I say the opposite of B.
Because if B is already negative, people think that's all I need to do. Just put that right here, because it's negative. It's not negative, it's the opposite of that.
Opposite of B plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4AC all this, all of it, all including this, all of it over 2A.
I make a big deal about all over.
Because I get answers that look like that.
It's not all over. And let me tell you why. And people working with blind people. You guys are right on blind people. I can't remember which math teacher I had in college. Somebody said, real mathematicians don't use line paper. Real mathematicians use blank white paper. That way we're not bound by any constrictions. We can free form, free think everything we want to do. Okay.
But when people write it on the lines, they write x equals the opposite of b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac and then over 2a.
So they don't see that it's all over. I forget it. Or because I say it's all over 2A, then they're just defined. Like my daughter was for high school.
It's okay to laugh, don't just laugh at me, just tell me to shut up. X equals, now we just substitute. Do not try to substitute and simplify all at once. That's where mistakes happen. I don't care how much you can do in your head. What I care about is you not making a mistake. What I care about is if you do end up with something that goes wrong, I can find the mistake and find out the partial credit. But if you do stuff in your head, I don't know how much to give you or where I can help you. Opposite of negative 16, so parentheses, negative 16, plus or minus square root b squared, so parentheses, negative 16 squared, minus 4 times a is a 4, times c, which is a negative 5. So all I did was substitute a, b, and c, and down here 2 times a, 2 times 4. So substitute, now we simplify. That becomes positive 16 plus or minus the square root. A negative squared becomes a positive. 16 to the second is 256. A negative times a positive times a negative. So we have 2 negatives here multiplied together. That becomes a positive. 4 times 4 is 16. 16 times 5 is 80. All over 8. X equals 16 plus or minus the square root. This is 336. All over 8. And that is 16 times 21. So this is x equals 16 plus or minus. This right here reduces. This is 16 times 21, which is 4 times 4, and then 21 is 3 times 7. So a 4 is going to escape. And you have these two, the 3 and 7, that go back into square root prism. So we have square root 21 all over 8.
You have to simplify completely. 16, 4, and 8 have a common factor. You can have to either factor out the 4,
Or here's what I hope you do. It's simplest to split this fraction into two separate fractions. 16/8 plus or minus 4 square root 21 over that 8. Don't just start crossing things off. 16/8 is 2. Plus or minus 4/8 is square root 21 over 2.
and that's the same answer we got with completing square. All you have to do is identify A, B, and C. You got to know your quadratic formula. You substitute, and you just take one step at a time and simplify it. But that's what we'll cover on Wednesday. So you should be able to take yourself all the way through now on the homework. Completing the square through 45. You can do the quadratic equation ones, that is through 67 if you want. I just demonstrated it, but we'll do examples of it on Wednesday. All right. Last week we did 4 and 5 from quiz prep. Quiz prep. 2.1 to 2.3. We did number 4, we did 5. There are 6 problems. Again, remember, it's open note. There are 6 problems. The first 6 on the quiz prep, you have to do 1 of each. And then 4 bonus questions, total of 4 bonus questions, like the rest of the quiz prep. The ones that say B, B1, B2. 4 of those. So the first 6 questions are 8 points, 48 points. The other ones are worth 3 points, so that's 12 points, so you can get 60 out of 48 points. So actually, out of the first 7. What am I asking? There's one thing that I said I didn't. Oh, number 6 is a bonus. That's a bonus type. So number 6 is a bonus type. So 1 through 5 and number 7 are like your quiz. And then 6 and 8, 9, 10B, those are your bonus type. What do you want to see? Number 7. The key to number 7 is that very first word, simplify first. Life is always good if you clean it up and simplify it. Order of operations, do what's in the parentheses. So we have 10 plus the square root of negative 400, the whole thing squared. So before I square it, 10 plus square root of negative 400, I'm going to poke out the I. The square root of negative 400 is 20. It's a 20i. If you don't recognize this is a 20, and You could just on a calculator punch out square root 400, but I gave you these things. 20 squared is 400. Don't try to rub this in the face. It just happened.
Or if you just do it by hand, this is 4 times 100, which is you have 2 times a 2 and you have 10 times a 10. So a 2 escapes and a 10 escapes, 2 times 10, that's a 29. Squared. And if you're going to play it safe, it's 10 plus 29 times 10 plus 29. 10 times 10 is 100. 10 times 29 is 200i. 1i times 10 is another 200i. Positive 20i times positive 20i is positive 400i squared.
20i times 20i is positive 400i squared.
So you have this 100. 200i plus another 200i, that's 400i. And then what is I squared? So this is plus 400 times a negative 1, so it ends up being minus 400.
That's why you gotta make sure you take care of that I squared, write it out.
So now you have 100 minus that 400. That's negative 300 and go positive 400i. Remember, the answer should be written in standard form. The real number A, and then plus the imaginary part, VI. What's next? Which one? 2. So 2 is 704 minus 3/5 x plus 2/3 equals 104 plus 5/3 x and plus 2. So we got fractions. We want to undo the fractions. We need a common denominator. We got 4, we got a 5, we got a 3. We have a 4, wrote it down already. Got a 3, wrote that down already. So 4, 5s, and 3. So the least common denominator for a 4 and a 5. What's the first thing that I could multiply by that would undo a 4 and a 5 at the same time? A 20. It would take a 20 to undo these two. So now I have to think about the 3, a 3 and a 20. What's it going to take to undo a 3 and a 20? A 60. Now it's not always multiplying them together. It would work, but it's not always the smallest one. Okay. If this were an 8, you don't want to go with 160. It's huge. The first number that 20 and 8 can work with is a 40. They both go into 40 even. 40 smaller, it's nicer. Okay. But in this case, it was a 3, and the first thing that 3 and 20 will work with is a 6. Everybody needs to be multiplied by a 6. Everybody. So we can undo the fractions. Don't forget the constant over here. The 2. With this one and this one. And the purpose is to reduce the fraction, to get rid of the denominator. This 4 goes into 60 15 times. 15 times 7 is 105 minus. 5 goes into 60 12 times. 12 times, don't forget the x, 12 times 3x, 36x. Plus 3 goes into 60 20 times. 20 times 2, that's a 40. Equals. 4 goes into 60 15 times. 15 times 9 is 135. Plus 3 goes into 60 20 times. 20 times, don't forget the x. 20 times 5x is 100x. And then plus, this is just 2 times 60. That's 120. So step 1, undo the fractions. Step 1 is also simplify both sides completely. So now that we don't have fractions, it makes it easier to simplify. Combine your like terms. This is 105, and that's a 40. This is 145 minus 36x. And pay attention that I'm working the problem from left to right. And as I work the problem from left to right, bring the problem down from top to bottom, right underneath it. Equals. Over here, these are 2 like terms. 135 plus 120 is 255. Plus, that's a 100x. So it cleans up really nice. 2 terms on each side. 2 constants. One constant, I'm sorry, constant on the left, constant on the right. Variable on the left, variable. Now that it's simplified, step 2, separate the variable and the constant. Get your variables. Think about it before you do it though. Get your variables on one side. So we're either going to get the variables on the left, and if I do that, I subtract 100x to bring it over to the left side. So I subtract 100x from both sides. Or I take the variable to the right side. So I have to undo a negative 36x by adding 36x to both sides. So I either subtract 100x from both sides or I add 36x to both sides. What do you want to do, left or right? You got to pick now. Add 36. So that way stay positive. Okay? Positive is always nicer to work with. So if I add 36, don't forget there has to be an x here. 36x to both sides. I have 145 on the left. On the right, I have 255. And this is 136x plus 136 times x. Now you got to get the constant over on the left. So since this is 255, you subtract 255. Maybe double do, check this with the calculator, or double check it with the calculator, but it's 145 minus 255, so it's negative 110. Equal to positive 136 times x. So now, constant, variable, step 2 is done. Step 3, undo multiplication or division. This is multiplication, so we divide both sides by 136. Don't forget the signs. Pay attention. Negative over a positive is going to be a negative. Simplify, this is 2 times 55 over, this is 2 times, what was that, 68? So the 2's reduced, so it's a negative 55 over 68. Next. Okay. Just to handle the decimals, I highly recommend you use your calculator and you're very careful. You still need to make sure you follow your order of operations. Okay. Before we do this one, I'm gonna do a little change up on it. You do have a question on your quiz where you have to do the problem with the decimals. The problem with that is people round too early. You use rounded values as you punch them in. And that's just gonna give you bad rounding when you do the problem. So when I put the problem in the quiz, instead of 3 decimal places, I use 2 decimal places in the question. I still say in the directions round to the nearest 1,000. So when you round, you need 3 decimal places. What you want to do is use all of the decimals in your calculation and round at the end. That doesn't mean you have to write everything out. But when you put stuff in your calculator, don't round those values. Use the exact value that just came out. And that just means, I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to change this to, I'm going to go ahead and change it to 6. I'm going to go ahead and just leave that a 9. So I have 2 decimals. I'll change that to a 7. That's already 2 decimals. And we'll leave that 4.19. So order of operations, you cannot combine these together because you have to multiply first. So you bring down the 1.66, and it's going to be a negative 2.39 times 5.97x. So it's going to be a negative. And we want 2.39 times 5.97. So this right here is going to be 14.2683, and it has an X. And the next one's going to be a negative times a negative, so that's going to be a positive 2.39 times 0.27. So it's going to be a positive 0.6453 equals, this is 4.19x minus a freestone. We're still simplifying, combine like terms. On the left, the only like terms we have is the 1.66 and the 0.46453. Well, look what's still in my calculator. All I have to do is hit plus and then punch in 1.66. And it will take this answer and add 1.66 to it.
So the last answer plus 1.66.
So on the left-hand side, I have 2.3053, and I still have minus 14.2683x. And over here I have positive 4.19x minus 3. Simplified. So now I got to make a decision, which side do I want to have x on? So I either add 14.2683x to both sides or subtract 4.19x. Which side? Left or right? So I'm going to add 14.2683, all of the decimals to both sides. So I have it's 2.3053 equal to. Now that's not in my calculator right now, so I have to type that in. 4.19 plus 14.2683. And this has an X. These are X values. 18.4583 X minus 3. And since we took the X's to the right, we're going to bring this 3 to the left. We have 3, which isn't so bad because 2.3053 plus 3 is just 5.305 equals 18.4583x. Now what? Divide both sides by 18.4583. And again, here's the nice news. I'm just going to punch up the numerator 5.3053 and I go divide by. I don't have to punch this. I can punch it in if I want to. But if I go divide by second and then the negative sign, right above it is answer. So it will divide by the last answer I have in the calculator. Some of you can scroll up, mine won't. Okay, I can't, when I hit the arrow to go up, it won't go up to the other column. Piece of junk. So I'm going to hit second, and I go to answer, divide by the last answer. So now I have as accurate as I can get with what I was given. I get x equals 0.2874208351. And if I read that, I lose points because it's not rounded. What is in the thousand place right now? The 7. Tenths, hundredths, there's 1,000. So does the 7 round up to an 8 or stay a 7? Stays a 7. Because this is a 4, this stays a 7. If it was a 5 or higher, then it rounds up to an 8. So final answer 0.287. Okay, get yourselves organized. Open no pencil
Okay. Whatever you're choosing to use. When you turn your quiz in, pick up the review sheet. No, wait, I said I was gonna give that to you, but never mind. When you're finished your quiz, turn it in, you're free to go. Try and get through at least, completing this work question. If you are, if you're requesting, accommodations and taking your test in another place, and the test day, make sure that you, if you've already done it, make sure you go there and ask them to change the date. And I can't do those things when I have the, documents in front of me. I don't think that goes early, and it's hard to do that. Put it in so early when sometimes I do. And here it comes. Please, first and last name. And when you turn in your quiz, if you came in late, make sure you tell me so I can mark you here. I already did it. Oh. Just so you're aware, it's on both sides. Sometimes you go, I didn't know there was a.